5 lessons from my fitness journey. So when I started out my fitness journey, I was quite clueless. I didn't know what to do whatsoever. I was struggling to find information online and knowing what to stick to. So today's video is going to be me sharing 5 things that I would have liked to know back then. So hopefully I can help some of you guys and provide some insights from my journey. And the first one is simply going to be habit stacking. And this is a very powerful approach when it comes to building habits, because building habits can be extremely difficult. I'm sure most of you have had a situation where you were wanting to develop a new habit and maybe you're committed, maybe you succeed the first couple of days, but as the days and weeks go by, you simply just forget about it, and then a while later you realize that you haven't been performing what you were supposed or you set up to do. So what habit stacking does is simply that you attach the new habit that you want to perform to an existing habit. So for example, if you're wanting to get into the habit of meditation each morning, you can do that after you prepare your morning coffee. So one thing that is extremely important, or what makes this so helpful, is that now we have a trigger for when we're going to perform the new habit. So the trigger for starting the new habit is simply you just made your coffee, now we're going to start meditate. And what's so helpful about this is that we have a trigger and then we have a reminder, making it way more likely that you actually succeed in developing this habit. And one thing that's very important to actually consider when it comes to habit stacking is that the frequency has to be the same. So if you're wanting to perform meditation daily but you only make your coffee once per week, then it's not going to be a good match. On the other hand, if you drink a glass of water every day each morning, then you can use that as your trigger for the meditation part. And this is extremely helpful simply because we get that trigger and the reminder. So hope you guys like that one. And the second one is simply that physical goals are not going to resolve our insecurities, and they can help with confidence and happiness, but they're likely not going to be the actual root cause to it. So for example, in my experience, I had been obese for my entire life and I wanted to get down to a healthy weight, and then I wanted a 6-pack. And what I did was that I thought that this would resolve my insecurities or actually making me feel good about myself. But what happened is that as I achieved the goal, I just set a new goal. So for example, when I got down to healthy weight, I then set the goal to achieve a 6-pack. And before I actually got my 6-pack, I realized that this is a dangerous slope that I'm running down, basically attaching my happiness and confidence to physical goals, because the problem is that it's very easy to put off happiness or put off being confident until you actually achieve that, and then when we actually achieve that, we don't really get there. So we rather have to find those things internally inside of ourselves. And the third one is simply going to be energy balance and counting calories. So what that means is basically that when we are trying to lose weight, we have to be in a calorie deficit, and when we want to maximize building muscle, we want to be in a calorie surplus. And the best way that I've found is simply to count calories to achieve that. And the main reason is that a lot of people go wrong when it comes to weight loss is that they make some changes to their life, they start losing weight, but then they hit a plateau. And that's not so surprisingly, because what they did put them in a calorie deficit, but as they lost some weight, that deficit is now their maintenance calories. So we have to get back into that deficit, and this is where calorie counting is extremely powerful, because then we can simply reduce the calories that we're eating when we run into these plateaus, so to speak. And the same thing goes with gaining weight. So if you're struggling to gain weight with your current calorie count, you can just increase it slightly, and that's just the most helpful way that I've found so far. And the fourth one is going to be how walking and training affects our health and well-being. And it's quite crazy, but walking and exercise has been shown to have mood enhancing effects that are similar to SSRIs, which is quite mind-blowing, and they can even be superior. And I realized that it can be very hard for a depressed person to find the motivation to go out for a walk or train, but one thing that we can, or how we can utilize this, is simply that if we're in that state where we actually need to take SSRIs, we can then start walking and exercising while we are on those drugs, and hopefully be able to get off them. And taking it to the next level would simply be to combining weightlifting with cardiovascular health, because when we have good cardiovascular health and we have a strong and healthy body, that's going to be an incredible quality of life. So on my journey, I simply started out with weightlifting, and that did wonders for me. I started feeling so much better about myself. I started feeling confidence, seeing the fat slip off my body and replacing it with muscle. That was just so powerful. But when I incorporated cardiovascular training with that as well, it just got to a whole new level. Like, that quality of life is something else, and I'm very grateful to be able to maintain those training styles to this very day, and I highly recommend everyone have a mixture of lifting weights and cardio. And the final one is simply going to be that there are no good and bad foods, and that is a huge relief, at least for me personally. And there were so many times where I went wrong when I was doing approaches with cheat meals or labeling food as good as bad, and I think that's a very unhealthy way to go about it, because cake, candy, those stuff they're not really nutritious, and we shouldn't have them frequently when it comes to maintaining a healthy diet. But every now and then it's no issue having them. And for example, if you're at a party or a social event, there's nothing wrong with having some cake. It can rather be a healthy thing, especially if you're a person that's having an eating disorder. Then it can be a huge win for you to actually enjoy those foods without feeling any guilt. And the main thing that I want you guys to take away is simply that there are no good and bad foods. They're just foods that bring us towards our goals, and therefore there are certain foods that doesn't bring us towards our goals, but it doesn't mean we can't have those foods. So for example, if you want to have a cake on one of your friend's birthday, there's nothing wrong with that. And on the other hand, you probably don't want to be eating cake every single day. That I at least wouldn't feel great on that. But I think the biggest thing for people to realize is simply that trying to find out what foods works for them and what makes them feel good. So for example, for me personally, that's going to be mostly eating whole foods and some type of meat sources, and I'm probably going to experience with some type of veganism going forward. So I'll keep you guys posted on that, and have a good one.